No matter what coating or service that you're providing, getting the customer back into your shop is the number one goal. You know, first of all, getting them happy, which then they want to come back, but then how to maximize that and how to maximize that lifetime customer value is super important. Detailer's Roadmap Cruise Control, where we navigate the roadways of life, business, and everything in between. Hey guys, it's Kevin Davis from the Cruise Control Podcast. I'm going to be here with a good friend of mine, Dominic Barry, today from Gtechniq in the UK over the pond. But before we get started, I want to remind you to go to detailersroadmap.com. We do kick-ass websites and SEO, among some other things that we do. Have some cool awards coming out right now. And if you want to be a part of everything that's going on at Detailers Roadmap, good time to get started. Go to the little demo button at detailersroadmap.com. We can get you started, walk you through your site, walk you through what we do, see whether or not it's a good fit. Hey, Dominic Barry is the head of marketing at Gtechniq, a global leader in advanced surface care solutions for automotive, marine, and other applications. Dominic has been instrumental in enhancing Gtechniq's visibility and growth and has led impactful initiatives such as the company's collaboration with Drive Tribe, generating millions of impressions and fostering deeper connections with automotive enthusiasts. And meeting one of my favorite people, Richard Hammond. I want to talk about how you get me his phone number. In his role, Dominic focuses on aligning marketing strategies with Gtechniq's commitment to cutting-edge scientific innovation and exceptional customer experiences. His efforts extend to overseeing product launches, managing marketing campaigns, leading the online strategy, and cultivating partnerships that reinforce the company's reputation for quality and performance. Dom, we've known each other for a while. I can't remember. I was trying to remember whether or not you were there. I think I was there before you got there, but not by much, right? Like I got there 2017-ish, I think.
Yeah, so I started Gtechniq August 2019. So I was there a couple of years, maybe a year and a half just after you joined, yeah.
Yeah, and the company improved drastically after you came on board. I'll just tell you right now. Trying to keep Rob and Stuart in check over there. Full disclosure, if you've not listened to episodes where I've said this, I was an employee of Gtechniq and then a consultant for Gtechniq for probably 5 years. And so I know a little bit about Gtechniq, but it's a little bit older, outdated information. So, but these guys are amazing, and I'm excited to talk to you. Thanks for coming on board, man.
No, thanks for having me. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, so the big thing we do, as we joked about in the before we started recording, which is, I know you've listened to the podcast, which I haven't. So, but I've heard it's pretty good. That's what I've been told. But one of the things that we do is we do the superhero backstory, right? Like you had a pretty interesting career before you came to Gtechniq, which is why you've been such a good fit there. Can you walk me through like your backstory and how you got here and what those things kind of led to and all of that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess it all stems really from, and again, I kind of can't remember a lot of this, but I rely on for those that, were around before smartphones were around, a lot of old Polaroid pictures of me sitting, when I was 6, 7 years old in an old Morgan. My dad at the time was also a chauffeur, so there was me in the back of a Cadillac limousines in the UK, which was like in the 80s kind of unheard of.
Yeah, I didn't even know they had those in over there. They're like, how do we make our cars worse? Let's bring over a Cadillac limousine and put people in it.
I mean, we had rusty buckets like Morris Marinas. So yeah,
good.
Cadillac was vastly superior.
Point well taken.
So my enthusiasm for cars really, I guess, started there. And since that age, I've always been into cars, whether that be going to car meets, car events, tuning shows, just hanging around with cars. As you do, every car guy knows that you kind of gravitate to people with like-minded, obsessions, I'm going to call it, because it is an obsession, or was when I was younger. And that's kind of where my fascination with cars sort of really happened. And it's always been a passion of mine, cars, be that car tuning, looking at what other people are doing, looking at the market, seeing where the trends are going. And I kind of started my career. I didn't do well at school. I wasn't really one of these kids that sits down and applies themselves. I was very motivated by going out there grinding. My objective is not to go to college or uni. It was go out to work and to be on a better salary and have a good career path by the time my friends came out and graduated. And I kind of didn't really know what I wanted to do as well. That was a kind of a big sticking point as well. So I kind of entered the world of retail, working for one of the UK's biggest retailers. And that's kind of where my enthusiasm for customer satisfaction and getting into the psyche of the customers really came to the fore. And after a couple of years working in London at the flagship branch in Oxford Street, I transferred up locally and was lucky enough to be put on a management trainee program, which was incredible back then. It was kind of one of the marquee trainee programs to be on in the world of retail back then. And that's kind of where my management then came into it. And I kind of really enjoyed learning about getting into people's psyche, understanding people, what motivates them, how to, get them to come with you rather than just kind of shout and bark orders at them. So that was quite good. And it gave me the opportunity to take ownership of certain areas within a store, make it my own, grow the sales. So again, it was kind of getting into the sales world. And after, doing 5 years in retail, which is long hours for not a lot of money, I think anyone could attest to that. I decided that I wanted to really get onto a proper career trajectory. And then I kind of moved into account management. So again, it was looking after customers, managing needs, staying on top of accounts, making sure everything's running smoothly. And after a couple of years of going off into the electricity world, which was a bit of a curveball, but it paid well. So it was all about managing data. So if you were a client, say, I don't know, like the Jets football stadium, you would say, how am I managing my electricity? Where's it going? Where am I using it? Where can I make efficiencies? And we were there to advise on that. So it was all about helping customers find a solution. So I guess that's never really left me. And then I got a huge opportunity when Meguiar's first came to the UK. It wasn't probably about 2 years after the first came to the UK. A good friend of mine, he went to uni, and then his first job out of uni was working for Meguiar's UK and working for the boss, Steve King. Got a lot of time, a lot of respect for Steve. He to build a brand from nothing to what it is here in the UK was a huge thing. And then, as with all car guys, again, Kevin, you'll attest this. I think any car guy will. My friend illicitly slipped me a tin of gold class Carnauba wax.
Right.
And that's kind of where I kind of forgot about the bucket and sponge and washing up liquid, and I started to use the paste wax. I couldn't believe, the finish you could get off a wax and how shiny my car looked, and it spiraled. And then a year later, my friend decided that he wanted to go and do other things, and he moved on. And he kind of gave me a little intro into the boss, the MD. We got talking, and turned out, I was a good fit for the company. So in 2006,
and by the way, an MD is what we call a CEO, sort of. It's managing director. Sorry, I'm gonna, I spent a lot of my time at Gtechniq kind of, trying to translate from, Queen's English to American English. So
I feel like we need subtitles.
That's right. There you go.
So 2006 is when I started with Meguiar's UK full time. And I stayed with them really up until it was about 2017. So in all, about 11 years there. And through that time, I started as a marketing assistant just because I love cars. I love going to car shows. It wasn't work for me. It was like my hobby and my job all in one. And then as I worked through Meguiar's, worked my way up through the company. So a few years as marketing assistant through to marketing manager, a good stint as marketing manager. And then I moved to a pan-European role. So managed the European marketing for Meguiar's, which was really, really cool because it gave me a holistic view of the European market that I never really had before. I guess it's really easy just to get bogged down and stuck in your own markets and think this is the UK or this is the US or this is France. So to have that opportunity to look at the market holistically and see the different trends in different territories and how they talk and work and communicate with each other was a real interest for me and a good eye opener. And then I kind of thought, 11 years at Meguiar's was a long old stint, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then out of nowhere, I was approached by Snap-on Tools in the UK to run their marketing essentially, and it was an opportunity I couldn't resist. I was given a blank slate to build a team, build a department, and basically build a better marketing effort, bring them into the 21st century, digitize them, make efficiencies. So I did that for 2.5 years in total. But after about a year, I was then given, I was showing some good improvements across the marketing side of the business. I was given the products as well. Now, anyone that knows me knows that I break more than I fix, especially when you give me a tool. So that was a steep learning curve, the product side for me. And even though I didn't join, I still enjoyed it. And then after 2.5 years, I got the opportunity to join Gtechniq. And I guess it's one of those things. I've always been a car buffy deep down. I don't know whether that's my half Polish roots that just make me want to clean cars, or just because I've just always loved cleaning cars. I've always loved having a clean car, spending time on my car. 8 hours, 10 hours over a weekend for me was the perfect weekend of just detailing and cleaning my car. So yeah, Rob called me. We had a conversation, and as they say, the rest is history. So 5 years. It'll be 5 years in August, just gone. I've been with Gtechniq now as the marketing lead. Initially, it was just me managing the global marketing effort, but then we hired Nathan in the US, so he's now come on board to help, because and certainly you, Kevin, will know that the world is a huge place, and you just can't do everything yourself. I mean, America just by themselves is a huge territory. 360, 370 million people. It's the size of Europe and then some. So that's kind of where we've got that marketing something now to build that marketing team out in America, which allows me now to focus on Europe and the rest of the world, and support our distributors globally. So I enjoy it just as much now as I did the first day. It's a great company to work for. You've obviously had Rob on, I think, before. One of the coolest bosses I've ever worked for. He's there to, give me a direction when I need it. Aside from that, it's Dom, I'm paying you to do this job, go do it. If you need to check in with me, cool. So it gives, I get a lot of headroom to do things, to try different things, to build relationships and try different channels. And here we are today.
Dude, I love that story because it's funny, because one of the things I love on this podcast is that there's a lot of times I haven't heard the full story. Like I've got a little bit of story. But I love because you're a relatively young guy. Like you're under 40, if I'm right.
44.
Oh, see, like you look so young. But you're still, as you walk through this enormous career, right? And everything you've done, it's like, it's for someone that would typically be much older than you, like myself, who's 6 years older than you. But I think that's super impressive that you made that choice early on to go out there. University is not for everybody. College is not for everybody. But you had this path that you kind of wanted to start on, and then it just, stars aligned and you have connections and all that. I'm interested in like how that transition worked coming out of Meguiar's. First of all, let me ask this. For those of that don't know, what is the difference between the way that Meguiar's handles their market in the UK and Europe versus how it is in the US? I mean, I know that probably whenever there was a little bit of the buyout and all that stuff, I know that their pro line kind of took a little bit of a backseat and kind of got hit by the bigger company. Was that the case? Are you guys more consumer focused in what you were doing, more pro focused? How did that work?
I guess the challenge has always been for Meguiar's, because regardless of whether you're in the UK, the States, or in Europe, it's one of these things where you're on the ground, you're talking to people, you're going to shows, and I think that's the piece that when Meguiar's was acquired by 3M, I don't know if they've quite still got their heads around that end-to-end piece, because 3M is a huge organisation that's very much B2B, and Meguiar's is solely B2C.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of rub there, and certainly for my first few years, when Meguiar's was acquired by 3M, there was a case of I was almost, I kind of called myself the human shield. I was like, I wanted Meguiar's to keep on the cold face, keep at the shows, keep interacting with people. Don't take away the ability for us to, if somebody comes down, pops in, wants to buy something, don't take that ability away from us. If we're going to shows, don't take the ability for us to transact with customers, because there's nothing worse than coming to a show and having a shiny car. I need some detail. It's a detail down my car. I can see it, but I can't. What?
Mm-hmm.
So there was a little bit of rub there, and I think they're navigating their way through the systems, and that's a challenge, isn't it? It's where a big global meets it's still a big global, but a very B2C driven company. So that was kind of an interesting integration. So there were challenges around that, but essentially we managed to keep the business running as it was running. So we were still doing seminars, still doing shows, still doing events, working with all the cool cars, getting people into our unit. I think it's changed now a little bit. They've consolidated distribution centres for ease, and I'm going to say Brexit hasn't helped the UK in terms of how we get stuff around Europe. So actually, efficiencies mean it's better sitting in Europe. So there were some challenges around there. The Pro line has always been interesting because the Pro line for me is it's the detailer brand of Meguiar's. So anyone that's been into detailing in the UK or the US, they will have heard the Meguiar's Pro line, and it's a solid line. You just can't get away from the fact, I know there are other brands out there, but it just covers all the bases, and they've got such a rich history, and they've had so many clever people work for them, and still do. So that line I see going from strength to strength. But in the UK, it was very much focused on the consumer line. So we were going into Halfords, so kind of your Walmart, AutoZone, O'Reilly's, Pep Boys, those sorts of equivalents. So it was all about focusing on getting the DIYer, taking them from the bucket and sponge, educating them into wash mitts, buckets, detailers, clay bars, or the safe way to clean your car. And that job doesn't stop. That just continues because there's more people coming through the hopper. People move on and do other things and go to other brands, but that's like an ever revolving thing. So I think now there's an element of the Pro line is still the Pro line. It's still available, and I think for the everyday consumer, they'll get some Ultimate Compound or whatever off the shelf they can get from the regular retailer. But those professionals will always go to that professional line.
Yeah, I mean, I'll still go 105, 205 if I need to. I mean, that's some of the best polish. I mean, it's some of the best compounds out there. I mean, it still is. Yeah, you could put some 101 on if you want to get completely dusted by dust everything within a 5-mile radius, but it cuts gel coat like crazy. If you've never tried M101, just get a hazmat suit. It'll do the job really well, especially on a rotary. I find that super interesting because I wouldn't, and we'll talk about all these brands, but I would not expect someone to say that there was a big education component from consumers to try to get them to use better, like that whole education on wash mitts and better practices and all that is not something I think most people would think of when it comes to Meguiar's, right? Like, it's like, oh, this is just the old guy at the car show, with a yellow towel from Costco, and so I like that idea. I think that's really cool, and I don't really know how much it would vary between what the marketing looked like here in the US and what the marketing looks like over there, and I know it's changed in the last 5 or 6, 10 years. I mean, probably 10 years now since you've been in it. So
yeah, so I mean, and it's interesting because again, we do seminars here and we go to events, and we still, you'll have the really educated dad that's saying to his son, this stuff you need, to buy some of this stuff, or you'll have it the complete reverse where the dad's using like an old t-shirt or some old pants that he's cut up to buff his car, and his son's like, Dad, like, use this, like, you can do better, and then suddenly light bulbs go off and like, oh, cool, I understand what it is, and so. I mean, I think in terms of markets, it's interesting. I think the US is more advanced in terms of the amounts of people that are aware of detailing. I think the UK have caught up a little bit now, but as a whole, I think the US market is more aware of detailing products and what makes a product good. Versus in the UK, I think there's still a big chunk of, we go to the default of washing up liquid like Dawn. A bucket and a sponge. So there's still a lot to do.
Is the market differentiation, is that dichotomy bigger and that gap bigger in the UK than it would be? So like here we have, people that have a Hyundai or Honda or, whatever, they're typically still trying to keep their cars clean and all that. And then you have supercar owners that are, very obsessed about their cars. Does that same thing exist in the UK, or does it look a little bit differently, especially on the, if someone's driving their Aston or whatever, then they're going to have much more care for their car than someone that is driving a Morris, right?
Yeah. I think it's kind of the same, similar. I think you have, and again, without coin a phrase, I think it's probably Barry Meguiar really that coined it, car guys. A car guy is a car guy. Now, there are nuances in, I might be a driver, not a cleaner. So I drive my car, but then I get someone to clean my car. But if you're into the realms of supercars there, or just cars that you care about as a car person, it's kind of an extension of yourself. So Me and Stuart, the head of business here at Gtechniq, we've had some wonderful conversations about, essentially car care being the cosmetics for guys, the equivalent for, the cosmetics for women, because, the last thing I want to be doing is rocking around in a dirty car, because for me, a dirty car is like, oh, come on, you can do better. So it's kind of, and that's why car guys, car girls, car people will spend more, because it's an extension of themselves. They want to keep that appearance of, they want to look good, and they want their car by default to look good as well. So that is, I think that is the same. It's at least it's very similar. Now there are nuances. So for example, I know we kind of similarly in the US and the UK, we have places you can go and have your car washed for you, or you have car wash stations. Now the US ones have proper brick built, proper units. We have like little pressure washers on the side next to, these little things built next to petrol stations or gas stations, which have got a brush and you're doing it outside and getting rained on. So I think, again, you can kind of see that the US are a little bit more advanced, but the legislation around car cleaning in Europe is becoming more and more stringent. And it's more to do with what can run off the car. So, for example, in Germany or France, you can't wash your car at home. You have to go to a car wash station where you have the facilities to wash your car. Now, I think most people that have been to any of these car wash stations, the brushes have been used literally on tractors, and they're shedding, they're dirty, they're horrible, but you have no alternative to do it. Now, you could do it at home. People probably still do. However, should the local authorities catch you, you're in for a really big fine. So it's almost like you have to take your go bag of Gtechniq products to the car wash with you, and then kind of segue that into how you wash your car. So certainly France and Germany, they're two very, very big markets in Europe for us. So again, having to come up with solutions for those sorts of problems where you might not be able to use a pressure washer at home, you have to think about what stuff can they take to the car wash and use with that car wash to keep their car looking great.
That's crazy, by the way. I experienced a very similar thing in Hawaii. It's actually like that in the US. It's not illegal, but it's very difficult to open and run a DIY car wash. And so I remember visiting my daughter who lived there for 5 years, and I'd be like, can I just go wash your Jeep? She's like, well, you could do it on base, which meant there's an Army base, but you have to be able to get on base, but there's nowhere to do it. And it's so frustrating. And she didn't, she lived in an apartment and all that, but I cannot imagine, I guess it's kind of the equivalent of living in California, but like it's, I can't imagine not being able to take care of my own vehicle at home. But yeah, I can see the definite challenges of being able to like transition, like, all right, you're still a DIY guy or girl, but you have to do it at this other place. And this is how you do it at this other place effectively. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And, the detailers do quite well out there because they've got purpose-built units and all permits and they meet the requirements for it. But yeah, like you say, as a DIYer, it's difficult, which kind of can take the sheen off wanting to do it, because you think, I've got to drive 10 miles, but then I've got to drive back and my car's going to get dirty, and do I want to do it? I'll leave it and maybe come back to it another time. So it kind of does, to keep that enthusiasm and momentum going, it does require a bit of creative thinking sometimes.
Yeah, and I would guess that there's actually a marketing component there that for Gtechniq and coatings to say, look, you're not going to be able to do this, so you might as well put something on that makes it stay cleaner longer, right? That's the could you even use like detail spray and that kind of stuff in your driveway? I assume that they're probably fine with that, but no water runoff, basically, right?
Yeah, so it's water runoff. So yeah, anything wheel cleaners, all-purpose cleaners, basically anything that runs off into the drains, they're not happy with. But spray on wipe-off products, glass cleaners, detailers, they're spray on waxes. They're okay with that because nothing runs off and pollutes the water.
I expect to see a commercial from you of having someone washing their BMW in their driveway, being arrested, and then you step in. If you had only gotten your car coated, feel free to use this, by the way. If you've only had your car coated with Gtechniq, this would not you would have not be in jail right now.
I feel a very cool advert coming on, and we'll make sure we get a percentage your way.
I like it. I just, send me $50 for the idea. That's all we need. But, and that's part of, I love what we're talking about because that's part of marketing, right? Like that's how do we take whatever situation it is. And to your point about getting in the consumer psyche, like that is one of those like real pain points, right? If I'm a car person in Germany or France, first of all, you shouldn't live in France, live somewhere else. But if I'm a car, no one likes the French. Let me just qualify. This is my personal opinion, not the opinion of Gtechniq or Dominic Berry. Talking about the French.
We love everybody, yeah.
That's right. But that's a pain point, right? That you can pick up on with marketing and from a global marketing standpoint, like what you're doing, but also at the individual accredited installers that you guys have.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like you say, it's telling people, if washing is a pinch point and you don't want to do it or you can't do it or you don't have the inclination to do it as often, that is exactly why you would apply a coating to your car, because it keeps it cleaner for longer. But it's not just the paintwork, it's the glass, the wheels, everything. So, and I think when people live that real world, they have this light bulb moment. But it's getting them to switch on from the psyche of, I'll say the more traditional technology like spray waxes, paste waxes, spray on sealants. It's telling them and teaching them to take this not leap of faith, but this, look at this new technology that's out there. And I say it's new. I mean, it's been around for the best part of 25 years since Rob started Gtechniq. Right. So, but there's still a huge amount of education around ceramic coatings. And I guess the challenge is this is probably one of the more aggressive markets in terms of the amount of ceramic coatings coming through. I mean, every week I see a new ceramic coating coming from China, and it's like, cool, but does it fulfill all the promises? Is it easy to use, easy to wipe, etc.? So we've got to educate people about in the right way. And I think again, once people buy into it, it's almost like not the Empress New Clothes, but that sort of thing. You can't see it going on because it's optically clear. But once it's on, people are just like, the amount of rave reviews we get back for people saying, I've had my car coated. It's phenomenal. I'm going to recommend it to all my friends. And again, this is why we tend to work with a lot of automotive enthusiast clubs. So we'll have, we're detailing partners with the Porsche Club at GB, who I think are the second biggest country club aside from America. You take that mantle. But that's why we're very active with them. So we'll get owners to come in, we'll get them trying the products, we'll show them what the coating does, show them how easy it is to clean. And we see it all the time, this light bulb moment to say, cool, can I do this? But then the other stumbling block is, well, can I do this at home, or do I have to take it to someone? Because I've heard that it's impossible to install. And I'm like, well, you've got options there. If you want the product, if you want our Ultra, sure, take it to an accredited. If you've got a Porsche, you're probably not short of a few bucks or a few pounds, so you could take it to somebody to do it for you. Or if you a guy or a girl that likes to do it themselves, just because you like doing stuff yourself, you can absolutely do it on your driveway. And I think it's kind of dispelling the myths and telling people, it's okay, you can do this by yourself. It's not as difficult as some people would lead you to believe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's like I know that the argument is always like, well, if Gtechniq is pushing their consumer line, then that's going to hurt my business, right? As a Gtechniq accredited installer, which I want to get into that a little bit more. Hey, that little thing on your phone when you search and you say business near me? Well, people aren't finding you when they search for ceramic coating near me, detailing near me, tint shop near me, PPF shop near me. They're not finding you as well as they should, or they're not finding you in the areas that you'd like to. Detailer's Roadmap has a solution. I want to introduce our new Google Business and Maps Accelerator. We have got this great new program that not only gives you an opportunity to do some search engine optimization, SEO, but in a very specific way that is designed to be map friendly, Google business friendly, and in order to get you more leads in areas that you're currently in and areas that you also want to target that may be slightly out of your own area. So go to detailersroadmap.com, use that little schedule a demo button at the top, and tell them in that form that you want to do the Google Business and Maps Accelerator program. Take a look at that. It's very cost effective and a very entry level price, and it's awesome. When you did Snap-on, for example, it sounds like a really good like way for you to bridge into what you're dealing with the individual installers, right? Because you have individual trucks that are going out and all that. Was that sort of that marketing aspect that you were going through that?
Yeah, I mean, for example, in the UK, there's about 430 Snap-on franchisees. Now, that's great because there's a lot of franchisees. However, there are challenges with that. Um, Trying to tell, or in Snap-on, the way that, for those that don't know Snap-on that well or don't know how the programs within Snap-on work, it's essentially there's a monthly program and you get a set of tools every month to sell to your territory. Now, you can imagine trying to tell 430 independent businessmen that have been doing this probably a lot longer than I've been at Snap-on. This is your program. Well, I don't want this because I know they don't want this. I want that. I want that. And suddenly it's like, well, hang on, you're giving me 200 different programs between 430 of you. We can't logistically make this work. So there's always a bit of compromise there. But the feedback is always good. So working with franchisees has kind of, like you say, segued into being able to work with the accredited network and understand their need. I would say the accrediteds are probably more receptive and more open to ideas than necessarily some of the Snap-on franchisees are. Again, the values are slightly different because you're not pushing product at them all the time, which is what you are at Snap-on. You're giving them a monthly rotational program. But there are different ways that we run marketing programs here. So actually, we give the accreditors direct leads and say, look, we're out there on social media. We're targeting a set demographic that we think will be the type of person to bring their car to you rather than do it yourselves, and that is provided by us. Because you're committing to being a Gtechniq accredited, it's our way of helping push a bit of business your way. We'll also do other things where we'll work with Drive Tribe, so a huge platform in the UK, certainly very popular in Europe. We'll work with we'll bring our accrediteds in as well, just to show off the fact that there is that accredited piece of the Gtechniq as well. And for the most part, I think the accreditors are really, really successful business people. They know what they want. They know how to run a business, and we try and help facilitate that in any way we can by maybe it's bigger, products in bigger quantities, bigger cases, or helping them. They might actually suggest products for us. They might say, well, actually, we use a lot of this, and as a consequence, we'd rather buy it from Gtechniq, but we're buying it from another brand because you don't have this. So that gets fed back to us as well. So there's a real good symbiotic relationship between us and the accredited, and it really is a nice two-way street to have. Whereas with the Snap-on franchisees, it was a bit more, I'm a franchisee, this is what I need to keep my business running, feed me, but what I want, not what you want me to take.
Yeah, right. And the customers typically can't pay for their coding $36 a week for the next 37 years like they can at Snap-on, right? Is that the
Well, I mean, some of the savvy shops now are offering things like Klarna. I mean, it's
Klarna, Affirm, some of those different aspects, right?
Yeah. And I think that's a lot of that's where it's come from, because Snap-on, it's literally, buy a socket set and you're paying $36 a week for the rest of your life. And then but with Snap-on, that's very clever because it's an easy way to add product on, because you're only seeing an extra $10, $15 a week on your bill. And suddenly, before you know it, the wife asks you for your statement and you show her it, and you're close to getting a divorce. So, but it's good because that sort of stuff has then spiraled into the Klarnas and these payment houses that allow you to spread payments. So some savvy detailers do offer that as an option for people.
Yeah, I mean, I really like those options. I mean, it's crazy because I sell retail online, and I got an email from Shopify the other day. It's like, now we have 2 payments. Like they've actually split it down into just, if you get them to split their payment in 2. So it's like, hey, they're going to buy something for $40 and they pay $20 twice. It actually increases your conversion rate by having those payment options and stuff like Klarna and Affirm and those kind of things. If you're not using those, you definitely need to be looking into it, because it's no risk for you as a shop owner, because I've used this for other large purchases and all that, but they actually take on the responsibility of collecting. You get your money minus whatever fees are associated, but then they're responsible for collect. You're out of that financial part of it. You get paid and all that. So if you're not doing that, definitely look into that. Now, the Gtechniq accredited network in the UK has been pretty competitive, right? Like is it still pretty locked down from what it was, or is it, a little bit more open and easy? And I'd love for you to contrast between like what that installer network looks like here in other parts of Europe or other parts of the world, and then what it looks like in the US. I know you're not directly running the US market, but
Yeah.
I think you have enough.
I mean, at a very base level, it's very similar. It's very similar. They're business people with units that run shops. Now, I would say in America the scale is larger. Our shops here are probably maybe a third of the size, half the size in terms of floor space. So there might be one garage or two garage units. We've seen the prevalence of a lot of paint protection film as well. So that seems to have, we're getting a lot of people that were paint protection film installers and are looking to, that market's now drying up. I say drying up. There's a lot of paint protection film. The competition has increased significantly. Obviously, with COVID, car production has slowed down. So they were actually looking for other revenue streams. And this is where we started to get a lot of the bigger shops come to us and say, well, actually, I've got a big shop. I've had a detailing business. My main focus has been films, but now I kind of want to become accredited. Because of the Gtechniq, the provenance and the respect that the Gtechniq name commands, but also I want to add an extra revenue stream.
Mm-hmm.
And they're finding that actually the two can coexist quite nicely. So our top accredited, there are two very close to the office, probably within an hour's drive here. One does pretty much 50-50. PPF and Gtechniq installs, and the other one is just Gtechniq products. They're quite well known within the BMW scene to have a very captive market, and it's a hugely passionate market, BMW market. So it's a real good example of how if you're driven, if you're hungry, you can run a successful detailing business. I see on these forums, and I guess you see it as well.
Mm-hmm.
People saying, what marketing companies are you using? How are you generating leads? I think a lot of it is, part of that is a marketing company. Sure, you can pay someone a lot of money to do that for you, but I think there's drive as well. There's making those connections, connect with the local car clubs in your areas, get them in, let them know you're there, because, people probably won't travel 3-4 hours to come to your shop. They'll find a shop locally. So it's connect with the local car enthusiasts. Unfortunately, in Northamptonshire, where we're based in the centre of the UK, there's a lot of car clubs, a lot of car activity. We have the Silverstone Motor Circuit down the road from us, about 20 minutes. And we've got a couple of other very active events. We've got Birmingham, which is an hour north of us, where there's a huge classic car show that happens there once a year, but there's loads of other automotive car shows. So again, it's very easy for us to reach out and connect with those enthusiasts, but you've got to have that drive to get out there and do it. You can't just sit there and wait to come to you.
Yeah. You guys, we have Amelia Island, we have Pebble Beach, you guys do Goodwood, right? Like that's the major, is that the major show?
That's the biggest automotive show in the UK currently. Yeah.
And that's more B2B, like in terms of what you guys do there. Are you trying to reach individual enthusiasts? Because I know you guys always have a cool car and a cool booth and all that, right?
So our objectives from Goodwood are kind of twofold. The first one is to kind of let people know we are still there, because again, you'll know, Kevin, like if you're not in front of somebody, they will forget about you, switch off, they'll see another brand, and then that's it, they've gone. So it's keeping in front of people. But the people that go, I mean, Goodwood is not a cheap day out. The tickets are probably about $100 plus your fuel, and then you've probably got to pay another $100 because the food is massively overpriced there.
Plus another 100 for parking and all that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I joke, but it's not a cheap day out, and it's one of these things that the people that go there are all they have a little bit of disposable income because they can afford the day out. If you pay for hospitality, it's even more, even more. So it's a nice day out, and sometimes you will get, we call them dads and lads. They will go together for a day out as a treat. But what we see a lot of is a lot of Porsche enthusiasts tend to congregate at that show. And the number one thing we still get asked is, I've had my car treated, how do I look after it? And I kind of sit there and I'm like, wow, where did you have it done first off?
We missed a step here. We missed a step.
Yeah. did they give you any, idea of how to look after it? Maybe they did, but you kind of got home and forgot and didn't really pay much attention because you had a lovely shiny car. So for us, it's also about being present, but educating. There's an awful lot of education that happens at Goodwood. We kind of use cool cars to pull people in. We're very lucky. We're very blessed. We have a very good space in terms of not necessarily size, but just location. When all the brands, the main OEMs, when they were all coming back from Goodwood post-COVID, we kind of basically said to them, look, hold our deposit. We're committed to the show. Please give us a good spot if one comes up. And it was so lucky. I still, to this day, don't know how we got the spot that we did, but it's ours for as long as we want it now. So again, it's us maintaining that commitment with the show. And again, it will always be education for us. It will be education, be that maintenance line or be that, what is a coating? I don't understand it. Can you explain it? So that's kind of our key objectives for Google, but also, it does help because we do sell some product while we're there. And again, it's this, you'll know at car shows, you're kind of there, you've gone for the day, you've walked around. It's like, I feel like I need to take something home. I can't leave without buying something. So people often stop by, check out the cool cars that we've got, and we try and mix them up every year. And last year was a good year. We had the Liberty Walk Lamborghini Countach and a Aston Martin Valkyrie. I don't know how we're going to beat that this year, but we try to every year. But yeah, we use them to pull people in and try and give Gtechniq a bit of a cool factor. Because I think one of the things about the company is certainly in the UK, we're very, very, very well respected as a detailer brand by Porsche owners and the high-end car owners. It's getting ourselves embedded into that younger market, and we're starting to see that pull through now. I guess the earliest memory of my time at Gtechniq was, going to Goodwood before I'd actually started work at Gtechniq. So it was the summer before I started in the August. And I overheard a guy saying, "Oh, your stuff's good, but it's too good for my car." And I'm like,
wow,
absolutely not. I'm like, are you nuts?
Yeah.
Like, look at the stuff that we have. It's not, and I guess the perception is people look at it and go, "Oh, Gtechniq Premium must be expensive." Actually, when you look at the maintenance line and you pitch it against other brands, we're actually incredibly well priced. We're thereabouts in terms of the pricing, for a premium brand. So I was talking to this guy, I'm like, dude, like the shampoo, the detail, the coating. Yes, the coating's expensive, but if you just want to wash your car and detail it and clean the interior, there's a whole kit here, and it's about the same that it would cost you from another brand. And he kind of went away and said, wow, I didn't get that. So we've started to, that message now in the last few years has really started to gain a bit of traction, and we're seeing a lot of young people come through and join and sort of get on board with the brand now. So we're sort of testing the water with probably events that Rob back in the day would probably never dream of doing, because
he doesn't go to those events. You get him to go to those events.
it's big events where you've got young lads going around circuit with their hair on fire, driving tuned up BMWs or tuned up old school
Golf GTIs,
Golf GTIs, yeah. And it's really good to, when you start talking to them, it's like, "Oh, have you heard of us before?" Yeah. Well, I've seen you guys. I've heard of you. I've bought some stuff. I've tried some stuff. And we're very much still in the sampling phase as well. So anytime we go to events, it's always take a sample. Just take a sample, try it if you haven't tried it. So it's good to see that enthusiasm now for the younger generation. Because my simple point to Rob and Stu is, we spend a lot of time going to events. We need to do that because today's 21-year-old who drives like a 118 BMW, he's going to do well professionally. In 20 years' time, he's probably going to be rocking around in some sort of Porsche or something very expensive. Let's get him to embrace the brand now, and then go with him as he progresses through his life.
Yeah, because Gtechniq's always been obviously you're still a premium brand, but it's very much almost like the trickle down economics theory kind of, right? So like it's been very geared towards supercars, hypercars, Porsche, BMW, Aston, Lambos, and all that typically. And then it sort of trickles down, but you're actually reinventing the marketing plan so that it's both directions, right? It's yes, up and down at the same time. So that's super cool to do that. How would you equate that to a local shop? I saw a post yesterday from my buddy Hunter, who's been on this show. He's a he's a provider of marketing service, really good guy, really great service that he does. But he was talking about he just got himself a really nice Porsche, and forgive me, but I cannot remember which one it is, GTRS, I think. But he was also talking about his watch. And so he was talking about being able to join these groups based on this premium, kind of hobbies that you have, right? Like that kind of gives you an in. But in my mind, I was thinking, well, yeah, that's great for that part of the market. But what if you live in, somewhere that doesn't really have that market? Or if someone's be like, dude, you drive a Porsche and wear a Rolex, I don't want anything to do with you or your business. Right. Like that's, that can be a problem too. So what would you like, how do you equate what you guys are doing at a global standpoint from a very high-end OEM to like what local people can do to try to reach both sides of those market, or just give me the ideas on really identifying what your market is? That's the other component of that question.
And I guess here's the tricky thing. So in my mind, our market our demographic is anybody from the ages of 18 through to till they can't drive, which is like, I don't know, 70, 75 to the physically.
Hey now. I'm not that far away.
I'm almost halfway there. But it's a really broad market. And we have those groups too. So it's interesting because you will find that the people with the GT3 RSs or the real nice cars. So there's a group in the UK that we partner with. It's called Supercar Driver. Basically, if you want the elite supercar owners in the UK, that's the club to join. It is a little, but it's a little bit, I would say, removed from the real world. And I mean that with a lot, with full respect to the group. But there's a lot of high net worth individuals in that group, and it's a closed group, so you can only join it if you've got, I think, a GTS, Porsche GTS or higher. You can only get into that group. So there's a lot of high net worth individuals, super passionate about cars, but it allows those types of guys because they'll be quite like-minded. They'll have, we're part of the group because we're part of the club, and it's a WhatsApp group, and there'll be guys trying to sell like 10 grand watches on there. And I'm kind of watching this going, geez, this is so far removed from everyday world, but it allows them, like-minded individuals, to be able to congregate and talk about their, the things that they enjoy.
Yeah, and their business networking and all, like it all, it's a write-off, and probably for most of them, there's a write-off component, and it's a networking, it's being around your people and all that too.
Yeah, so a load of hugely successful business people that quite rightly, have worked incredibly hard, probably taken a whole heap of risks that I would never want to even take, and have done very well out of it, and now as a consequence own some very expensive cars. But I was kind of having this conversation with Freddie or Tavares when he came to Goodwood. I went to the Supercar Driver Club just again to kind of network and meet these individuals. And the problem is it's so separated from the real world. It's incredible. Like I was walking along the pits with myself and Stuart, and we'd walk past and we'd see like 5 Valkyries parked together. We'd walk past and see 6 F40s parked together. And you kind of just walk past, yeah, cool, some F40s, oh, some Valkyries, cool. Oh, look, there's Adrian Newey's Valkyrie. And it's like, at the end of the day, I said to Stuart, I'm like, you need to kick me, because if I was a kid and I went to this, I would be literally, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. But you kind of get desensitized to it very quickly. So it's quite good that we can take a step back out of that club, serve the members, serve the club, promote our products within the club, which we do, which is great. But also it's about the grassroots. So some people might laugh at this, but the Lotus Drivers Club, they love coming to see us because they love seeing the laboratory on site. They love seeing the Gtechniq works where they can get hands-on with stuff. They love seeing the warehousing. People, when they come in, they get giddy over the warehouse. I couldn't believe how much space you have here, and how much warehousing space you've got here, and how big the company is. So when they see all this, it's as much as engaging with those groups as it is with engaging with the bigger groups. So you're almost a friend to everybody, but but it's all about the marketing message. You all know, Kevin, it's all about the marketing message is very different to one group than it is to another one. So that is what makes us so busy, and what also keeps us on the toes, because it's nowadays, if you're posting stuff on social media, it's easy to forget what account you're on, or post the wrong word, so we have to be on the ball 110% of the time.
And you don't have an assistant yet?
I do. Yes.
Oh, okay, good.
Yes. I finally hired an assistant, Lulu. She's great. She's young, and she understands social media incredibly well, which is great. And I think going back to, I guess, our generation, I think we're the generation that we do well in this sort of market because we understand we were the generation to grow up without phones, without computers, so we understand how to talk to people, but we also have had to learn how to use technology.
Right.
There's still stuff I look at, I'm like, TikTok, what? I'm like, but that's why I have Lulu to help me. But I think that's why there's a segment of generation, kind of our kind of age group. We can be personal, we can be put in a room and we can network with people. Whereas I think some of the younger generations, because they're on smartphones a lot, I don't think necessarily as a generation those social skills are probably as good as potentially our generation. So I think that's the interesting bit as well. So we're really good with the written word and we can wordsmith things, whereas again, nowadays with ChatGPT I see this erosion of skills, if you like. It's very easy to go, hey ChatGPT, write me this, and it's like, hang on a second, bring, when you're writing an article about how to wash a car, I bring in my own, when I started washing a car, I remember these challenges I have. They might not be the same as everybody, but I remember these challenges. So let's talk about them, this, that, how it fixed it, how we can, how Gtechniq can fix the product, fix the challenges for you. So that's, I think, kind of our generation is kind of in a sweet spot. I know we're getting older now, but I think we are in that sweet spot.
Yeah, and I think that there's an education that can happen for, you teach Lulu how to get out, you take her to a show and help her get out and talk to people and kind of learn that side, and then she can help you with TikTok and hopefully the appropriate way to use ChatGPT, because I use ChatGPT a lot, but I also use it as a jumping off point. It drives my wife, Michelle, nuts because now Google has not quite figured out how to kick those, pure ChatGPT stuff out. And so it's like, it's the same article over and over and over again. And you can tell it's just been generated by ChatGPT. So if you're using ChatGPT, do so responsibly. We'll say that.
Very good bit of advice. Yes.
You use it responsibly. It's like alcohol, I guess. But I think that that's important too, because you're somebody that's running this huge, marketing organization, really, when you're talking about just the pure scale of it. And it's not like, hey, my job is to run marketing for a company in the UK, right? I know this, then it's a very well-defined small market. You're talking about global markets with tons of different, you got multiple languages, you have multiple targets, you have multiple, social mores. And the way, with like Detailer's Helper, one of the things we learn is that in certain cultures and Asian cultures, or in a lot of cultures that don't care about labor, like I can't sell my product there because they could care less if they save time or not, because they're paying whatever they pay, very little. And so you have to know those business practices on how they're applying, what products they're applying and how they apply them and how their customers. So kudos to you for doing such a good job with that. I do want to go back to one thing that you were talking about, though, and I think that this is an argument that people, I got a couple things to talk about still, but one of the arguments that I get is, yeah, but I like washing my car. Right? Like, why would I want to get my car coated and then not have to wash it? Because that's been an overly used local marketing, like shop level marketing strategy for coatings, right? Like, never wash your car again, or it takes 2 seconds or whatever. How are you educating the consumer? And you touched on it a little bit, but how are you doing that? And how do you recommend your installers educate the consumer on that? Because one of the things, there are just some people that really like to spend a Saturday morning putting paste wax on their car, right? And there's always going to be those that, well, not always, because those guys will all die soon, but there's always, because they're old. Like most of those, there's not a lot of 25-year-olds that are like, yeah, I'd love to go out and spend Saturday paste waxing my GTI.
Yeah.
But like, so we're dealing with that over time. But how do you educate the consumer, and then how to educate installers to educate their consumers?
Well, I think in terms of the consumers, it's about time. It's about time and it being precious. Whether that, I guess the good example for me is, 5 years ago, I didn't have a child, and I could spend all day cleaning my car. You come into the unit, use the pressure washer, spend as long as I need, no consequences. Now I have a child, so there's school pickups, school drop-offs. You've lived all this, Kevin, and time is precious. So for me, if I can squeeze in a quick wash on a Friday, my lunchtime on Friday, for me, the car's coated, so it cleans up really easy. So it's time. The time is a big one. For those that like to spend time on a car, well, actually, you can still clean your car. It just means it's not so much of a laborious task, and you don't have to pull out the paste wax or a liquid wax. You don't have to re-wax it, because even re-waxing a car, and I did this for the best part of 11 years with Meguiar's, that takes time. It takes effort, and not that we get hot summers here, but when we do get a warm day in the summer,
68 degrees and only sort of drizzly
with a bit of mist. I used to be finishing, and I was like, geez, that's 45 minutes. I feel exhausted. I feel like I need a shower. Well, actually, if you've got a coated car, it'll clean up easy. You're still going through the same process of shampooing. You're still cleaning your wheels. You're still cleaning the sills, the tires. Go hoover the inside if you want. You can still feck with the car and clean your car, but it just cleans easier. So it means that you can actually go out and enjoy your car. I mean, if it means that you only have to spend an hour washing it in the morning, and you can spend the rest of the time driving the car, that is time well spent. That's where you're getting the fun from it. Now, I guess for installers, it presents a good opportunity, because those that are savvy and switched on will say to their customers, well, cool, I've coated your car. I tell you what, if you bring it back to me every 4 weeks, I will maintain it for you. Yeah, so it's about finding that accredited detailer that you trust, and if it's the guy that has installed it, well, actually, we offer that guarantee that backs the coating. So why not take it back to him, so that he can look after the cleaning of the car and the maintenance of the car, and then it's literally all you've got to do is drop it off, let them wash it, pick it up, and then you're driving around again. So it's all about trying to offer customers maybe maintenance packages to keep them coming back, or because I think a lot of detailers, depending on how you look at it, they'll be very transactional. They'll say, thank you for your coating, I'll take your money, we'll see you in a year when you come to inspection. I think those that are now looking to add extra value, getting people to sign up for almost service plans, kind of like a Volkswagen service plan. You pay X amount a year and you get X, Y, Z in return. So I think that's a good way to go for shops, really, to get those services plans. And even if you've got a customer paying, I don't know, $20 a month for that service plan, that's money just trickling in all the time. And if you get enough critical mass, it can turn into a nice revenue stream. But also, you're keeping the customer happy, and it's pretty easy.
Yeah, because I mean, if their car stays clean and everything stays maintained, and you keep them from screwing it up and all that, and that goes. I've been talking about lifetime customer value for a decade, and these maintenance plans. Whenever I was running the network in the U.S., I'm like, you do what to your customers? You just send them out. Like, when will you talk to them again? Well, I don't know if they come back. I'm going to kill you, first of all, but let's talk about these maintenance plans. Let's talk about lifetime customer value. And really, so, I mean, no matter what coating or service that you're providing, getting the customer back into your shop is the number one goal. First of all, getting them happy, which then they want to come back, but then how to maximize that, and how to maximize that lifetime customer value is super important. I want to touch on, I want to be respectful of your time. Before we go, I want to touch on something that actually surprised me that you said, because one of my questions was, hey, let's talk about the global coating market, like what's happening in the coating market. And what you said about PPF shops adding coatings, like I wouldn't have guessed that. Right. Like I would guess that it's because what I've seen anecdotally, and this could just be bad data on my part, is we're going the other way. That the coating market is weaker. Pricing is coming down, and more people are pushing PPF instead. That's kind of their go-to business model, right? Is that not what you're seeing? I'm curious about that, because you said pretty much the exact opposite, which I think is true, but I'm curious about. I want to learn more about it.
Well, I think in terms of where the growth is coming from in the accredited market, and because we have set criteria, and it's the same in the US, we have set criteria for joining our accredited network, and we don't mean this to be elitist, but if you have a Ferrari or a Lamborghini and you turn up to a driveway and you're expecting your car to be coated, would you be happy leaving your car there?
Mhm.
It's if you turn up to a unit that's big, that's well presented, that has a roller door, that has bollards, that has security systems, that is dressed well. Would you rather take your car there? So it tends to be that we'll have some new accreditors that come on, already PPF shops that are looking to join the accredited network. PPF is still a big thing. I think the problem is it's so prevalent now. There are so many brands coming in. I guess there's at least probably two that are market leaders, but there are every couple of months there's a new brand, a new PPF. I'm sure there's probably been some bigger like bigger companies that are probably maybe eyeing up us doing PPF, but we would never do that because our core is ceramic coatings. We want to stick to our core. Whereas I know other big coating companies have also ventured into that PPF market. Some have had success, and this is feedback we're getting from the accredited network. Some with a bit of success, others it's turned into this beast that they can no longer control. And again, the good thing about my time at Meguiar's is I had a good insight into Venture Shield, which I think no longer exists now. Before 3M turned that into the 3M paint protection film. But I work with a lot of guys there that are now gone off into different manufacturers, and I understand the huge complexities, the amount of effort that's required to go into staying on top of cars. So certainly templating, that is a full-time job for somebody. So, and templates are key, because if you don't have a template and a customer turns up, you can't do that car unless you free cut it. But
yeah, unless you're hand cutting everything, right? Yeah.
Who wants to do that? Unless you're really committed, but then you're kind of losing money because you're spending the amount of time, money cutting up the paint protection film. So I think just through the sheer competitiveness, there's a lot of jostling going on. And I think, those where we have gaps in our accredited market, and we have certain shops that may have just done PPF that want to offer another revenue stream. So I guess it works both ways. But like I say, some of our best accrediteds have a good balance of both. Whereas the couple locally, one's really really good just at pure coatings, and another one's really good at that balance. So I think again, going to SEMA this year, you were there. I mean, how many paint protection film brands were there in our hall? It was just a wash with vinyl and paint protection film.
Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, and it was a lot of Chinese brands, and I mean, there's some smaller brands too, but it was like, are they really making all of this film? Like, how many factories do we have? Is it like the blenders in the United States where there's a certain, there's only a certain number making all the products and all that. So it's, so it really becomes a brand thing. And having a good brand, because the film is probably not that different between all of them. But yeah, the market is just so saturated.
Yeah, and you've got to look at the nature of how people get into cars and keep cars. Again, I don't know whether it's in whether you see this in the US market, but there's a huge lease market here, certainly in Europe. People don't own cars now; they'll lease them. Certainly with electric cars, I think you're insane if you probably ever buy an electric car just with the residuals, if but nothing else. Something like a Taycan loses 50% of its value in 2 years. It's crazy. So I think a lot of people are now going into the leasing world. There's also incentives that help get people onto the electric ladder. But even in terms of petrol combustion and ICE engines, it's still they'll buy in for 3 years, and then when the next model comes out, they'll chop it in. So am I that really worried about putting some plastic film on the front of my car? Not really, because I probably won't have it for longer than 3 years. Do I want to coat it to make life easier to clean? To make it easier to clean? Yeah, I can kind of feel that, because I'm probably going to clean it more than I will do worrying about the stress of getting the stone chip in it. So, but again, and sometimes people have a blend of both. They'll have some paint protection film on the front of the cars and not on the back. So. But it really does come down to, are they keeping the car, are they leasing the car, and the type of owner they are, and how much exposure and how much they want to pay for this film.
Yeah, and if they use it in a way that they are trying to avoid residual costs when they turn the car back in from their lease, that's a good argument for front end PPF and mirrors and that kind of stuff. And I mean, I guess if you want to lease and have the money to do a full wrap on it, I'm not sure why you would do that, but I'm assuming there are people that would want to do that. But I mean, we keep our cars forever. So, but I still have not PPF the Cobra because there are no square. There are no straight lines on that whole car. So unless I need to like plasti dip the entire thing in super hard PPF. But I think that's where we're seeing. Do you think that the glow, like I want to talk about competition real quick. Are you guys as an industry leader? Do you guys get worried about these competitors? Like I know one of my buddies makes a product called MaxTrax, and it's the leading basically recovery device. They're essentially hard plastic polymer boards that you use for off-roading and sand driving and those mud driving and those kind of things. He was like, I don't ever mention competitors. I don't care about them because I'm already the industry leader. Why would I worry about giving them but I see in the detailing industry that a lot of people get so concerned about the competitors in their local market. And I'm interested from a corporate standpoint. Do you guys worry too much? How do you handle that kind of stuff?
We don't really worry about the competition. That's not to say we're arrogant. We always keep an eye on the field to see how the game's going. So if we have competition that comes up with a new proposition, again, part of the benefit of working with Gtechniq is we have a lab with 3 technicians downstairs, and we've set up this protocol that means that every single coating that we test or product, we run through exactly the same test scenarios with exactly the same products applied to it with exactly the same methodology, which allows us to then have results that are standardized. So anytime a new brand comes up, or there's a new coating, or a new company comes out with a coating, we will always get hold of some, and we'll run it through our test procedure here, which will give us results. And it's not just on performance; it's on a variety of metrics. So it'll come through to application, removal, performance through our testing procedure, hydrophobics, chemical resistance, a whole bunch of stuff. And we have the standardized formula, which is really good. So we know we're happy with the performance of our coatings. Does that mean we rest on our laurels? Absolutely not. We did a project for 2 years on graphene with the Nobel Prize winners in the field. Turns out that really there's not much in it.
Really? I'm so surprised.
There is in year 6 onwards. So it does offer a better gloss retention from year 6 onwards. So where for example, traditional coatings might dip off after 6 years, this will give a bit more of a performance. However, that said, how many people will still have their coating on their car 6 years later? Even if it comes with a 9-year guarantee, I think most people will probably either, because of the leasing nature, will either have moved on, or they'll have by years 3 or 4 just wanted to redo it again. It's the nature of us enthusiasts. We never stop tinkering. Car people, we never stop tinkering. So we are always cognizant and aware of new people coming into the market. We will always test it, but our results, we will always take a results view on things. So we won't ever panic. We won't ever do anything reactionary. We will take the product, assess it, analyze it, benchmark it, which is probably a good chunk of the 50% of the time the lab team are doing this. If there is something in it, we will absolutely study it, trying to understand the science and what's new. But I think a lot of the time, I guess my caveat to the market would be is sometimes what some brands say don't help everybody else, because they can make outlandish claims which are just nuts, and that's kind of where you get a bit of customer skepticism that comes in, and we try and keep the market honest. We say, look, these are the results. We've got reports to back up the data. Now, are we going to share them? No. Internally, yes, but we have reports, and we have a scientific process that says these are the results, and we stand by them. Will we look at new technologies? Absolutely. So, the graphene piece was a 2-year piece of work. we invested in that research and development, and turns out that you win some, you lose some. Graphene didn't pan out, but we did the research. We understand it. So if customers come to us and say, I've got a graphene product, does it work? It's probably because it's a really good product. The graphene or the graphite inside it does nothing for you at this point in time. So it's good to have that honest conversation with customers. And I think when they have that conversation, understand that we are very factual, we're driven by science. They appreciate it more. And then we can then tell that story because we've actually physically done the research, done the development. We can then communicate it out. Now, we kind of had a bit of a discussion internally about whether we should, go in and do a whole YouTube thing about blowing up the graphene world. I don't think we need to, because that has long.
It seems like that
now.
ship has sailed already anyway. From a marketing standpoint, it was like everything then had graphene in it, and it was graphene this, because that became the buzzword, right? Of the season.
Yeah, so. I feel, the feedback we get from the US team is that's gone now. That buzzword's gone. But again, that's why we're not always going to be, graphene's here, quick, let's make a Gtechniq product 2 with graphene in it. We might be late to the party by a year or by 9 months or whatever, but when we do come out with a product, we intimately understand how that product works and how it works on those specific surfaces. And having the lab here as well to be able to convert science and hexagons and formulations into layman's speak is an absolutely priceless resource. So again, when these coatings come over from China, again, we grab them, we pick them up, we test them. We kind of understand what the pinch points are going to be before really they're out in the market. And then I won't say it's nice, but it's reassuring to hear that, these pinch points are realized in the market, and people are like, yeah, I've had this problem, I've had that problem. I'm like, cool, well, that validates, well, we knew that, but it's good that your real world testing has validated our lab testing. So we're always making that correlation between real world and lab. And as you know, Kevin, UK is possibly the best place in the world to test coatings because it's rainy, the roads are salty, it's grim, it's cold. So it's the perfect testing ground for us to actually put things on cars. Now, there is a lot of lab stuff that's done, but there's also a bit of real world, stick it on a car and see how it performs on the bottom sills. And actually, because up to a point, there's a certain amount you can do in a lab, but you just can't get away from the real world, put it on the road, see how it performs.
Yeah. And I think equating that to what you can do in your local business too is to sum up what you're saying is you need to understand what your strengths are and what your market position is for your business, and continue to educate the consumer as to why that's better than other competition. Obviously it's a different, it's not necessarily apples to apples, it's specifics. But one of the things that I think has resonated over the 23 plus years that Gtechniq has been around is that you guys are recognized with everything that you just said. I think the consumer recognizes that as well, which then trickles down to the individual accredited installer network that you have, throughout the world and in the US as well. But, and so like, if you're in normal business, like if you're just if you're installing whatever you're installing, just making sure that you stick to your brand and then educate your consumer about your personal brand, like what, Bob's Detailing Shop or whatever, that how important that is. And then customers will continue to see that consistency and brand, I call it brand integrity, but brand integrity over time. Dude, this has been awesome. I could talk to you all night, but I know you got to get home to your family. It's a little bit later there in the evening. How do people find out more information about Gtechniq and possibly joining the Gtechniq team as an accredited installer, and or looking for maintenance products or consumer products or any of that kind of stuff?
If you're in the US, head over to gtechniq.com. There you will find everything you need to know about the products. You can also, if you're a shop and you're looking to become accredited with Gtechniq, you can actually apply online there. There's a little form there, super easy to do. If you're outside of the US, head over to gtechniq.co.uk. Same sort of principle. You can buy all the products there, find out more information about the products. And again, if you're an accredited shop in the UK or Europe, you can apply using our form on the website.
Super interesting. I really appreciate you taking the time, Dom. I know I've been trying to get you on for a little while, so I appreciate you coming on. And it's always good to see you and have a conversation with you. And I'll be looking for that Richard Hammond invite soon enough.
It's good to see you, Kevin. Thank you for having me.
All right, bye-bye.
And I will see what I can do about that Richard Hammond.
Oh, good. I will say before I go that Richard Hammond's book about his TBI, his traumatic brain injury, and that story, and I cannot remember the title of this book at the moment. But if you don't know who Richard Hammond was, Top Gear US, Top Gear UK, and then the show that they did on Amazon, really interesting guy, and that story about that event and how his marriage transformed and those kind of things, it's just a great story. And that's actually much more interesting to me when I read that book than any of his car guy stuff, right? Like I found that fascinating. So that's why I've always been interested in what Richard Hammond's got going on. But that whole team is so cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think you get a bit of an insight with that book that you see the Richard Hammond on Top Gear in TV, and then you see the Richard Hammond, the guy in the book. So it's cool.
I highly recommend. All right, Dom. Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
For me.
Head over to detailersroadmap.com and get your one-stop success solution today.